how to add additional pegs or stitches to your fixed peg loom. When would you use this? For example, this hat over here, the base or the brim was made by using a few additional stitches than what the loom had. This is what it looks like without being seamed with that button. As you can see, it has a little flap, and that flap was created by working additional stitches than what the loom had. These examples were made on the 48 peg purple round loom by Provocraft. I'm going to demonstrate the technique using the round blue nifty knitter. It has 24 pegs. So let's go ahead and make a slip knot and put it on your first peg. I use my first peg, the one that is to the left of the anchor peg. So we're gonna cast on. For this cast on, I'm just gonna do the yarn over cast on, which is basically you wrap the peg and then you E-wrap it again. Then you lift the bottom loop over the top, tug on the working yarn, again E-wrap the next peg, E-wrap the next one over it. So you're E-wrapping the peg twice. So one time, two times. So go ahead and do this all the way to the end of the loom, so until you have E-wrapped, double E-wrapped each of the pegs twice and knitted them over. So I'm at the last peg, so I cast on it, and now I have the 24 pegs. But let's say your item says that you need 28 pegs, so you will need an additional 4 stitches. So go ahead and you are going to double up the stitches on the first 4 pegs of the loom. That's the first, second, third, and fourth. So go ahead and cast on right on top of that, of the first 4 stitches. You will scoot those stitches down the peg, down the bottom of the peg, so that you don't use them. Just ignore them. And there's the first peg, the first additional stitch, there's the second additional stitch, there's the third, and the fourth. So now you have your additional 4 stitches for a total of 28. And now you're gonna start knitting around. So how would you do this? Well, let's say the pattern says to knit the first row. So simply bring the yarn towards the front of that last peg that you cast it on. So peg number 28, or put the working yarn on top of it, lift it over. Remember, we're ignoring those first 4 stitches that are at the bottom of at the base of the peg. So now we'll do the other next one. 2, 3, and continue knitting in this form until you get to the 5th peg, that one right here, the one that is not doubled up. Now that you have knitted those first 4 pegs that are doubled up with the stitches, go ahead and get a cable needle. Some of them look like this. If you don't have a cable needle, you can just put them on a safety pin, anything just to hold the stitches live. So go ahead and take the stitches off the pegs, of those 4 pegs, and slide them onto that cable needle. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And place that cable needle towards the center of the loom and leave it there until we need it again. So now go ahead and knit towards the end of the row. You will end up by peg 1. At this point, I'll show you what to do with those stitches. So go ahead and keep knitting until you reach peg number 5. we have reached peg number 5, so go ahead and knit it, and then just keep on knitting, this time moving the stitch up from the base of the peg so that you can use those first 4 stitches. And that was the first row. And next we're gonna see what we do on the row coming back, going the other direction. Okay, so let's say the next row tells you to knit. If it says to knit, knit it. If it says to purl it, purl it. I'm just gonna knit for this example. So knit to the end of the row. So you will knit from peg 1 to peg 24. But remember, you still have those 4 stitches on the cable needle that are part of that row. So let's get to that point and then I'll show you what we do to put those stitches back on the loom. So over here I have knitted the last stitch, the peg number 24. Now I need to put the stitches back on the loom that are on the cable needle. So slide the stitches towards one of the end of the cable needle and put them back on again on peg 1, peg 2, peg 3, and peg 4. Push the stitches that are at the bottom all the way to the base of the loom and ignore them for now. Just leave them there. Make believe they're not there. Let's pretend for a bit. So now again, go ahead and knit on those 4 pegs, those 4 stitches that you just put on. So ignore the bottom loop because that's from the previous row, the beginning of the row. So just knit those top loops. Now that you have reached the end of the row, you have knitted 28 stitches. You will have to go back and knit again towards the beginning of the row. So just knit the 4 stitches again, turning back the other direction. Remember, ignore the bottom loops, the stitches at the bottom. Two, 3, and 4. Now that you're here, you have knitted those 4 last pegs. You are going to continue knitting towards the beginning of the row, but to make it easier on you, simply remove those top loops of the first 4 pegs and put them on your cable needle again. And you're going to do this every time you reach this spot at the last peg, and you need to continue knitting to the last stitches that you added. And that is working with additional stitches on a fixed peg loom.